TF2 has had a lot of community maps added over the years, and with the long-requested Man vs. Machine update finally coming to fruition, a new batch of PvE content will officially see the light of day. With a decade's worth of contenders to pick from, it's vital we prioritize the cream of the crop. That of course begs the question though, what is the cream of the crop? What are the most beloved maps in community MvM history? Well, Valve, allow me to do your job for free. Over the past couple of weeks, I've been conducting the largest community MvM survey to ever exist. 325 players, 74 eligible maps, each one ranked on a scale from 1 to 10. After calculating the vote tallies, we should come to a result that's broadly representative of what players want to see added to the game in an official capacity. Supposedly, the Man vs. Machine update has been delayed until 2026, likely due to the volume of additional playtesting that they sure as shit were not prepared for. And even if they were, what Phil still got in the game? Forgive me for being a tad skeptical of their acceptance criteria. Luckily for Valve, they don't have to shoot in the dark anymore in regards to public sentiment. We've got it all right here. Now, there are a couple of caveats, specifically pertaining to each map's eligibility status. Any map that doesn't have a Steam Workshop page has been omitted from the ranking. Ditto with any Halloween or Christmas reskins of both Valve and community-created maps. Most controversially, I also decided to omit every map that hasn't been included in a community MvM campaign, i.e. pretty much every map made after the initial blog post announcement. The reason for that is simple. No one's really played them yet, even community MvM fans with a disgusting amount of tours under their belts. At this point, there have been more MvM maps created in 2025 than there are actual beta testers playing them. Putting these new maps up against entries that have had player counts totaling into the thousands is wildly unfair. The sample size is just way too small for any comparison to be valid. To be clear, all I want is the best content in the game. I don't care if it's a long-standing community map or Billy's first hammer sesh that somehow oozes gold from every orifice. However, there's simply no method of quality assurance that exists for the workshop side. You can't quantify anything beyond the star ranking system, most of which aren't even evaluated by playtesters. Again, even Whatville has a 4 out of 5. This metric ain't shit. The community MvM scene knows for a fact that these pre-blog post maps are widely appealing. The numbers are there to prove it. The same can't be said for the modern day workshop maps. That doesn't mean it can't be true, it just hasn't been proven yet. This is also why maps that have been heavily overhauled were also excluded from the rankings. Their old iterations may have gotten some action, but the new ones not as much. Their scores would be wildly irreflective of their modern reality. The moment any of these maps get chucked into a community campaign, I will immediately pitch to update the ranking. Until then, this is about as meritocratic as you're going to get. Alright, preamble over, let's get into the results. Starting with the S tier, there were 4 maps in particular that stood head and shoulders above the rest. Waterfront, Underground, Coast Rock, and Sequoia. Waterfront in particular, I was very surprised to see at number 1. I've always heard it described as a love it or hate it map. Guess the haters were really noisy on this one. Most of the smaller, compact maps are pretty damn bland, so Waterfront stands out as a real diamond in the rough. Likewise with Coast Rock, another map on the smaller side that seems to be widely loved by the community player base. It's number 3 for a reason. Sequoia and Underground were top tier picks that I've mentioned previously, and I'm happy that others agree. These ones are a lot larger than the other two, but their layouts are fantastic and allow for a lot of interesting mission lineups. As far as really expansive maps go, these two are top of the class. One rung down, we head into the A tier, and this is where the map clusters start getting bigger. This is where you get a little bit of everything. A bunch of old school maps, some relatively new ones, some have simplistic concepts, others push the envelope, probably a bit too much. Looking at these map totals, they all bounce around a 7 out of 10 rating wise, which I know doesn't sound high, but when you're dealing with a nation of averages, it absolutely is. For reference, I decided to separately poll my fanbase on the best PvP maps in the game, and here are the ones that didn't crack that 7 barrier. Borneo, Harvest, Mountain Lab, Gorge, Lakeside, Coldfront, Granary, Steel, Powerhouse, Kong King, Viaduct, Process, and Gully Wash. In a community with a wide range of opinions, having the middle of the bell curve be at a 7 out of 10 is a really strong showing, one that the vast majority of maps in the game aren't able to match. Also, I want to give a quick shout out to Silent Sky for being one of the most atmospheric maps I've ever played. The alluring skybox, barren midsection, and fortified shelters nail the feeling of winter isolation. Until you start building sentries on top of the thin ice. My immersion is ruined. Remember Shiver Peak? Fuck that map. This one destroys it for the best winter rep. Moving on to the B tier, this is where the largest chunk of community maps end up falling, with 19 total entries. These ones have similarly well-liked reputations, but aren't quite in the same league as the tier above. If they made their way into the game, I don't think anyone would riot. They're pretty good additions, just nothing that people would be over the moon about. This is around where the average Valve MvM map ends up landing too. In fact, I also ran those numbers. If we add them to the ranking in descending order, Rottenburg would be the lone S tier at number 4, Manhattan the lone A tier at number 12, Manworks in upper B tier at 24, Coaltown in lower B tier at 36, Decoy drops down to C tier at number 50, and Big Rock brings up the rear at number 51. Hopefully this helps illustrate the results a bit more clearly for people unfamiliar with the community side of the game. If you pick something out of B tier, you're getting a map about on par with Manworks or Coaltown, going off of collective opinion alone, though nostalgia bias could potentially be clouding things a bit. Speaking of C tier, this is where the maps start feeling a lot more simplistic. They're either smaller, more barren maps reminiscent of Decoy in the base game, or they're extremely large maps with layouts that do nowhere near enough to justify their scale. Some of them could make for decent filler missions, a quick 20 minutes in and out, but there are so many better choices we could go with for the update. D tier follows a similar trend, only this is where we start seeing a lot more gimmicks show up. Red Ridge is a zombies map, Scallops has jump power-ups everywhere, and Casino City is a gambling sim within a gambling sim within a gambling sim. They're not widely hated maps or anything of the sort. For community campaigns, they're completely harmless, but for an official update, more players would rather shelve these ones than not. Art style liberties have proven to not be a dead-on-arrival concern, and given Valve's recent track record, it likely wouldn't be considered even if it was. Gameplay liberties, however, are a different story. Most people want the new update to stick to pre-established norms. The controlled novelty concept I mentioned a few videos back. F-tier maps are just kinda worse versions of the tier above. This is where you see the medieval mode maps, grittier Halloween ones that aren't reskins and therefore count, as well as a lot of older maps that haven't held up well. None of these should be included, and I think even their own creators would agree. That's the entire list. If you want the full spreadsheet for point tallies, workshop links, vote numbers, and all that jazz, it'll be in the description. Pretty much everybody will have contentions with this ranking in some way. This won't be ideal for everyone. Maps like Steep have a lot of old school map linearity that some people might feel is outdated. Doppler is a fun map, but new players frequently get lost playing it. Robot Factory is some of the most fun I've ever had playing community MvM, but for an art style Andy, they'd rather douse themselves in kerosene before going camping in California. You think I'm any different? I'm not. I drop Coast Rock, Sharp, and Scrapyard down a tier while bumping up maps like Quetzal, Silent Sky, and Cliffside. Bogland has a theme I don't really gel with despite its gameplay prowess. That goes double for Sharp. I much prefer the Applejack style autumn theming over the more muted orange color palette reminiscent of Brew. I think Siberia looks awesome, but I don't find the front lines all that fun to hold. Everyone's got something to whine about here. However, this applies to literally any evaluation method for determining what maps should be given an official release. So regardless, I'd argue that this is the best resource that Valve can pull from. However, this tier list doesn't tell the whole story. We need to contextualize it within the framework of Valve's modern content philosophy, which is a lot more fire hose than faucet drip nowadays. For this reason, I believe it's incredibly unlikely we'll see multiple missions tied to one map in particular, as we see with most tours in the game today. Instead, I believe Valve will go the gear grinder route, having multiple unique maps with only one mission to their name. Now, whether or not you view this as a good or bad thing is entirely down to personal preference. Some players might prefer having that kind of map continuity, while others may think it's a needless restriction that ends up bottlenecking more map variety. Two cities feels like, well, 2 cities, a complete package. Whereas being very scattershot in multiple directions might sacrifice some aesthetic parity in the name of more ground to walk under. Whatever you prefer is entirely up to you, but it is crystal clear which one Valve prefers, so that's the direction I'll be optimizing towards. With this context in mind, there's a pretty crucial variable that I think Valve should be accounting for: map sizes. See, with the exception of Waterfront and Coast Rock, a lot of the best community MvM maps are big. Like, really big. Even ones on the smaller end of the distribution are about on par with the largest Valve maps already in the game. Big maps aren't inherently a problem if the missions are appropriately designed to make use of its vast terrain, a feat that many of the community MvM maps accomplish quite well. That being said, if the mission design isn't on point, a full tour consisting of nothing but huge maps would be very tiresome. Experienced players will knock them out no problem. That just comes with the territory of being a veteran. If you don't enjoy the concept of steamrolling through missions as optimally as possible, you'll need to use off-meta builds or play with a surplus of low tours to get some potential challenge. This endgame is inevitable and not what the game mode should be designed around. But ideally, Billy the 8-tour noob should still be facing those moments of tension, forcing retreats to chokeholds further back. This is good mission design and exactly what should happen, scaling in frequency as the missions do in difficulty. The smaller the map, the less room for error. The larger the map, the more room for error. And I'd argue there's a good balance to strike there. If we're going with a 5-mission tour, as I've previously advocated for, how about we get ourselves a nice selection? 2 big maps, 2 medium maps, 1 small one. I think that's a comfy fit for a new tour. There's some concern about missions and how those could go haywire as well, but the variables there are nowhere near as static. Is a part of the mission too brain dead? Fuck it, double the heavies. Is there a part of a mission that's too difficult? Change the crit soldiers to mini crits. Or hell, bump the starting credits up by 500 so everyone can max crit res. Whatever you want. This is all very easy to implement and much more feasible than terraforming a whole map into something salvageable. That's why I'm focusing a lot more on map design particularly. You can't fiddle around with it that much. It's very important to get that part right. Based on the very likely premise that Valve are gonna spring for a variety map pack, I think running with the 3-map trio of Sequoia, Underground, and Waterfront would be really well received. For the 2 medium maps, I'd pick Silent Sky for an absolutely beautiful and long overdue winter-themed map, and Rancher for some grittier contrast alongside fun mission potential. This would be a fantastic tour that would make a lot of people happy. You don't even have to listen to me. There's so much to work with here that Valve can build-a-bear a tour in 18 different ways and come away with some good content. Just don't forget to separate the loot pools so that the 2010s content doesn't get invalidated. I know I'm blowing that bugle a lot, but it's crucial for the long-term health of the game mode. Rumor has it that Valve are putting a surplus amount of effort into this update compared to the prior seasonal ones. Supposedly, there are multiple devs helping out with playtesting. Eric Smith is not the lone kingmaker in regards to map curation. And if that ends up being the case, statistically, one of you fuckers are watching this video. Okay, I know you are. So, here you go. The people have spoken. Pick from A tier or above. Hell, even B tier or above, and by sheer probability, you will get a good tour out of it. This better be in a Slack channel by the end of the week. Spreadsheet's still in the description, by the way. And with that, my MvM update arc has concluded. I'll be in the same wait-and-see camp as the rest of you until we get more info. I'm keeping my expectations in check, but I won't shy away from admitting that the more I learn, the more excited I get. There's just one more thing we have to talk about that's been on the back burner for a while now. Anyways, thank you all for watching the video. Twitter, Twitch, Discord, and second channel are all in the description, and that's all I got. See ya.